It was a historic week last week on Doubling Down as both my guest and I were both able to hit the daily double. Stay tuned this week for special guests as we go to Golden Gate Fields. What's up, everybody? Colin Sheehan back here on Trust the Profits YouTube page. This is Doubling Down with Colin Sheehan, and I'm so excited for my guest this week. Is the voice of Golden Gate Fields, Matt Dinnerman. He is at 3 Colts Handicap on Twitter. Matt, thanks so much for joining me this week.
Thanks for having me, Colin. Yeah, it's a big week for us here at Golden Gate, and we're hopefully going to make some money this week. How you doing?
I'm doing great. As you heard in my open, both of us, me and Keith, hit our daily doubles last week, and I like to bring up the standings, not to brag, but to take the pressure off of you. As you see, through 22 episodes, I have been in the green every episode. I'm up $51 on the bankroll. But if you look at my guests, they have not done well. A lot of red. So there's no pressure, Matt. No pressure on you. You can't do any worse than most of the people that have come on the show.
You're probably your odds are at minus 300 probably at this point.
Yes, right.
Me, head and head.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, there's no pressure, but that just means that we can only go up from here with your guests. So hopefully we can start that trend.
That's right. I like to post that out. So this show's open to everybody, new folks that are interested in handicapping and those that have been doing it a long time. The goal is to get voices out there. I'm so glad that you're able to join me. And I do the daily double because I think it's a great bet for people that are new to horse racing, new to handicapping. The pick 4, pick 5, pick 6 is all the glitz and the glamour, but you can't hit 5 or 6 if you can't hit 2, and that standings is evidence of that. Do you play the daily double at all yourself?
I do partake in the daily double at times, yeah, and I agree with you. I think when you're looking at pick 4s, pick 5s, pick 6s, for new people, it might be a little bit intimidating. So sort of starting smaller and teaching them the fundamentals of, hey, we just have to worry about 2 races here. This is what a multi-race bet is. It's a pretty good bet. And I'd have to say, especially here at Golden Gate, at my track, for example, we have rolling doubles. So you can play any type of double from races 1 and 2 to the last 2 races, in this case on Saturday, El Camino Day, races 8 and 9. And my dad, he has had a lot of success playing doubles and pick 3s. He doesn't play pick 4s and pick 5s that often. He does a lot better with the doubles and pick 3s, and he just sort of keeps rolling on with it. So I do partake in the doubles, and I think it's a good bet. And I think sometimes when you're going 3 of 4, 4 of 5 in tickets, and your multi-race bets like a pick 4 and a pick 5, sometimes you just narrow it down to 2. You hit the nail right on the head.
So it sounds like you have the pedigree for this show if your father's a daily double pro. So let's just talk real quick. The El Camino Real Derby, it always makes me laugh. I think of soccer when I say the word Real as opposed to a horse race. What's it going to be like this Saturday out at Golden Gate Fields for this race that is on the Derby prep race? It's the last race that's worth 10 points to the winner.
It's a fun day. I mean, a lot of people that follow racing that are in the area know that this race is not only a pretty important race, considering it's a Kentucky Derby points race. 10 points are awarded to the winner of this race for the Kentucky Derby, and you get a free berth into the Preakness if you win this. And Rombauer, a couple of years ago, of course, we saw him come back and use that free berth, all expenses paid trip, everything was paid for, and he won the Preakness. Not only is that a big deal, this race, and the implications that come along with it, but it's also a very prestigious race in the Bay Area. For many decades, we've seen a lot of very good horses go on to not only win the El Camino Real Derby, but they've gone on to win Triple Crown races. Real Quiet, he almost won the Triple Crown. He ran in the El Camino Real Derby back in the mid-'90s. So with that in mind, I think a lot of people that follow racing in this area, even if they don't come out to the track on hand that often, a lot of them show up for El Camino Real Derby Day knowing what a special race it is. I know that our turf club is pretty much booked for Saturday. We've got actually a Thoroughbred Owners of California luncheon, so we're going to have about 175 guests there alone. So it's a pretty fun atmosphere. It's a fun race, and I think people go to the track, sort of celebrate the fact that Golden Gate Fields is on the map on this day with the El Camino Real Derby big time, and we could see a really nice horse or two come out of it.
Absolutely. I remember Tabasco Cat was a horse that I remember as a young kid who And when I looked back, I always like to look back as you go through them each year to look at the names, and that was one that jumped out to me. So that's what we're going to do here on Doubling Down this week. We're going to start with race 8 on Saturday. That is the El Camino Real Derby. We have Baffert has come in with 2 horses. He won this race last year with Black Adder. I decided to move outside of the 2 Baffert horses. We have a field of 8 this year. Both of those Baffert horses were just on the Triple Crown nominated list. That's Gilmore and Nullarbor. Did I pronounce that right?
I believe it's Null Arbor, but I'm going to make sure that I get it right if that's incorrect come Saturday.
Okay, good. Don't let me put any bad names in your head. So the one thing that's interesting about this is a race that's 1.1 miles, and that's something that's unique on the Derby Trail so far. You know, we had the Breeders' Cup Juvenile run at 1.1 miles. This race is also on synthetic. So a couple of variables there that you have to take into consideration when you are looking at this race. Where'd you decide to go?
Well, I think we all know that if you look at the form, obviously both Baffert horses are going to get play regardless of their form. I think Gilmore is a much more probable winner out of the two than Null Arbor and Nullarbor. And again, we'll figure out how to say it come Saturday. We got a few days, but I think Gilmore is much stronger in terms of just his overall race record and sort of how he might take to the 1.1 miles here. With that in mind, I think that, for example, if you play him, he's one of these horses, you know he's going to get bet at low odds, especially for a daily double bet. You don't want to use favorite with, 2 favorites and play a double and you're not going to make much doing that. So I'm going to take a shot with Chase the Chaos, number 2. I do think Gilmore's the horse to beat in the race, but I will say that with Chase the Chaos, you've got a horse that has proven to really like this track. He actually earned the same Beyer speed figure Gilmore did when Gilmore broke his maiden and Chase the Chaos's most recent speed figure. They're the same. They both got an 81 Beyer. Chase the Chaos ran a huge race. He sat off a very fast pace, so he got the right pace to run into. So maybe it looked like he had a bigger kick because sort of the pace sort of fell apart and he was able to run on into it. But he won by about 7 on this track last time out and absolutely coasted in. I think he's getting better with time. He comes off, obviously, a very good effort. I don't think the pace is going to be as swift this time as we saw that Chase the Chaos got to run in last time. But nonetheless, he's going in the right direction for a good trainer, Ed Moger Jr., and I'm going to make him my pick, Chase the Chaos, number 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, let's just single him in the double and hope that he can pull through for us.
I like that. We got on a little early. We were talking how we're going to structure our ticket. You reminded me that it's a $2 minimum, so that's something you have to take into consideration. And I had to certainly adjust my ticket a little bit here. I do like Chase the Chaos as well. You had mentioned the last speed figure. I use Brisnet, so slightly different.
Okay.
But the last 2 speed figures were both 88. And what I really like to see with 3-year-olds is coupled speed figures. It sets you up for possibly another step forward. Until you see that highest speed figure, you have to assume that hopefully the horse will take another step forward. Now, of course, if he, maybe runs an 81, 82, you might know that 88 is the highest, or at least in the range of the highest speed figure for Chase the Chaos. But I'm taking a shot there. Just like you said, I'm going to take the Bafferts off my ticket. It'll probably cost me, but that's okay. But if I'm going to take that shot, and I like that you singled, that was, maybe I should have considered that. But however, I love this number 4, Passerando. Man, this horse looks like he struggles running. When I watch him on the backstretch on a couple of his replays, he really looks like he's putting in a lot of effort and not getting anywhere. And then he gets to the stretch and he just kind of takes off. And I saw that in both the Golden State Juvenile and also the Gold Rush. He likes the gold, and he ran in the Golden Nugget as well. This is the horse that I actually have on top. So the 2 that I really liked were number 4, Passerando, and number 2, Chase the Chaos. I then decided to also put on number 5, Arson, who is stretching out for the first time. This horse has run twice at 6 furlongs, hasn't been behind a horse in those 2 races. The stretching out concerns me a little bit, sired by Golden Sense, but same reason I'm using Chase the Chaos with the speed figures. I'm hoping that there's another jump there. He's the inside speed 2 the other Baffert, who Null Arbor has shown early speed in the last race. So that's where I'm going in this race. I'm going to go with the 2, 4, and 5, hoping to get the 2 Bob Bafferts off of my ticket. I love that you single them, and you said that. You said, I'm going to single them. I like that approach.
Sometimes you got to take the stand, and I always say if you can find a single that may even be a little bit of value, that's when you're going to really do well if you hit those singles. Of course, that's why we call keying on tickets, because they're sort of our key. If we can get that key into the lock and unlock it, it's going to really help us with what we perceive as maybe more competitive races, and we get to spread a little more.
Right, which is what we have with race 9, which I don't know if you want to use the word competitive, but it's just a little bit harder to decipher what you have here, because we're going from that race that is eligible for Derby points to a claiming $4,000 race at going 1 mile on the synthetic. Where'd you go here?
Well, it sure looks like on paper Secret Square is the speed of the speed in this race. There's really not that much pace in this race. Even though Lady in a Hurry number 5 is stretching out from sprints to a route, she's very much a deep closer in those sprint races. And I still think Secret Square is a little bit faster, actually, early on in the race. By the way, Carlos Barboza, he's a 10-pound bug coming from Puerto Rico. He's pretty well regarded as a jockey. I think his agent, Nelson Arroyo, and some folks in Puerto Rico think he's a pretty good rider, so he's a name you want to watch out for. He's here at Golden Gate. He's going to make his debut on Saturday, and he actually comes from the same jockey school as Irad and Jose Ortiz and John Velasquez and a number of successful people. I think Manny Franco came from that school. Angel Cruz, I think, came from that school. He's doing really well at Laurel Park. So he's a name to watch, but I'm going to spread a little bit in this race. Secret Square coming off, yes, what looks like a poor effort down south against Tougher is now in for $4,000. First start for our leading trainer, the Jonathan Wong barn. I'm also going to use Here Comes Ralphie, a mare that I think will benefit from a class drop. She was in for $8,000. Now the claiming price tag is in half, $4,000. Her speed figures stack up. And Lady in a Hurry, number 5, has always done her best work late in the game. Her sire, Elusive Warning, he produces a lot of one-turn horses, but we see horses sometimes that they look like maybe they've got a lot of sprint pedigree, and maybe they're not going to be mile and a 16th mile and an 8th horses, but the flat mile is good for them. So I'm going to stick Lady in a Hurry on a ticket in a race in which, you know what, there's really no world beaters. None of these runners I think you can really trust and say to yourself, well, this horse is going to be the one, because all their form actually is very inconsistent. So this is why I opted to sort of spread a little bit in this race, even though I think from a pace scenario standpoint, Secret Square looks like she's going to have a clear lead and she's going to get the right pace.
Yeah, and I agreed with you on Secret Square. When we talked about this being a $2 ticket, I knocked off the number 4 off my ticket. So I was 2, 4, 5 in this race as well. Because I went 3 in the first leg, the 4, Here Comes Ralphie, is the one that I decided to take off. So probably put him in the winner's circle for you. So everyone watching can sign him right up. But same reasons that you had mentioned with Secret Square. The one thing that I noticed was that this horse has been running on the dirt. This is the first off the claim for Jonathan Wong, and then it's also second off the layoff. So both of those angles kind of coming together in this type of race really hopefully made this horse stand out. If you go back to the 2 races that this horse had on the turf, it was back in 2021, granted. That's when this horse showed that early speed that you're talking about. I tend to kind of pay attention to what horses have done on the turf when they're moving to the synthetic, and that's kind of why I was also very high on the 2 Secret Square. I decided to leave Lady in a Hurry on. Another angle here is 4th off the layoff. So a lot of these horses have just been running and running and running. The number 6 and number 7 have been running at this level and not getting in the winner's circle. So when I see horses dropping down 2 classes, I'm immediately going to be attracted to those ones. And then when I did look at the speed figures on Lady in a Hurry, they were just higher and a little bit more consistent than the 4, Here Comes Ralphie. So that was what ended up being my determining factor between using Lady in a Hurry versus Here Comes Ralphie, which I'm assuming is a Christmas Story reference when she says, "Here comes Ralphie."
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Which, Which, if you watched that on Christmas, you probably heard it 23 times if you kept it on the TV in the background like I do. Anything else you saw in this race? I think you pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you say about finding horses. I guess this is a teachable moment. Finding horses that keep running at the same level and they just don't really seem to break through at that level. I mean, Delmar Flash is a perfect example. A mare that just she runs at this level, she doesn't get bad trips, and for whatever reason, she just sort of seems as of late to have that pack animal mentality that we know some horses do have. They just sort of hang around with the pack and they don't have that oomph to run away from the competition or win. So I try to play against runners like that. And even though you may have some horses whose form is not necessarily going in the right direction when you see class drops like this, if they've got anything in the tank, you would think that class would help them prevail in a race like this. I think these types of lower level claiming races, from what I've seen at Golden Gate, it's one of these deals that either the top couple choices win in the betting and you go, okay, that's not a surprise, or you've got a very inconsistent runner that decides to show up with their best race on that particular day. And you say, well, I guess if you look back in the form enough and you see that their best race isn't bad, it makes sense. But at the same time, they haven't run that race in 4, 5, 6 starts. So that's usually what happens in these types of races. And that's probably what's going to happen in a race like this.
Yeah, and the one thing that you just said that as I looking back does have me worried about Lady in a Hurry is the distance. So they're going up. This horse is stretching out to a mile, whereas Here Comes Ralphie has been running at least at a mile. Now in the comments, you won't be flattered by weekends, no late rally, no late kick, which is why a horse like Secret Square at this level, the horse that just gets out front and maybe gets away, the other ones just don't want to pass him. So I think we're safe with Secret Square, but I admire your singling in the previous race to get your ticket where you're at. Thanks so much, Matt, for joining me. This is a pleasure to have you on. Have a great Saturday. Don't think about those names that I pronounced incorrectly when they're coming around this stretch, please.
Well, if I say it wrong for some reason, I'll have someone to blame. But in all seriousness, it's been a pleasure being on your show here, Colin, and hopefully everybody out there can tune in. It's a fun race, and we're really excited every year when it comes around in February. So we're really looking forward to it here.
As they say, no bad press, no press is bad press, right? So
right, exactly.
If you want to blame me, you can call them up, call me right out as they pass the finish line. This is for Golden Gate Field's late daily double, Saturday, February 11th. I go 2, 4, 5 with the 2, 5 for $12. Matt Dinnerman goes 2 with the 2, 4, 5 for $6. Thanks again so much, Matt. Everyone else there, have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next time on Doubling Down.